The boyfriend's mother called and asked us to come over for dinner. As soon as we arrived at his house, a 5-year-old child suddenly dashed into his arms, calling him Dad. A plainly dressed woman with a radiant smile turned to greet me warmly. Emily, it's been such a long time. I can't believe you actually managed to win over Ethan. I glanced at my boyfriend, Ethan, suspiciously. He replied indifferently. Claire got divorced and returned to the country. She doesn't have a place to stay for now, so I let her and her son stay here with my mom. It was a struggle for me to get through that meal. Afterward, I agreed to go on a blind date at my family's request and got married within a week. At the dinner table, they all laughed and talked like a happy family, while I sat silently in the corner, saying nothing. Ethan's mother held the 5-year-old child and kept calling him the family's eldest grandson, her laughter brimming with joy. Suddenly, the child looked at Ethan and said loudly, "Dad, the toy car you bought for me this time. I love it so much." "That's good to hear," Ethan replied gently, his gaze full of affection as if looking at his own son. Perhaps noticing my displeased expression, Claire hurriedly scolded her child. "Tyler, how many times have I told you not to call Uncle Ethan Dad? Uncle Ethan isn't married yet." Although her words sounded like she was reprimanding him, her face showed no anger. Instead, she smiled brightly. Then, Claire picked up a piece of fish and placed it on Ethan's plate, saying, "Ethan, try this. See if my cooking skills have deteriorated. I made this dish especially for you, knowing you'd be back." Her actions were so natural, so practiced, that they looked like a real couple. "It's great," Ethan said. "All those years you were abroad, I couldn't even have this dish. Now that you're back, I can enjoy it again." He opened his mouth to eat the fish, and his lips unintentionally touched the chopsticks Claire had used. Watching that, I felt nauseous, losing any appetite I had left. While I was still dazed, Claire suddenly picked up another piece of fish and tried to put it on my plate. "Emily, you should try my cooking too." I quickly moved my plate away and coldly replied, "I don't like fish. I'm overly particular about cleanliness." The smile on Claire's face froze immediately. She bit her lip, looking aggrieved, her eyes welling with tears as if she were about to cry. Seeing her reaction, Ethan grabbed the piece of fish from her chopsticks and put it on his plate instead. He frowned and scolded me. "What's wrong with you? How long have I known you without knowing you were so picky? You're just trying to cause trouble, aren't you?" The frustration I had suppressed for so long became unbearable. Tears streamed down my face. Before I could say anything, Claire spoke up. "Ethan, don't blame Emily. It's my fault for being too eager." As soon as she finished her sentence, a small hand suddenly flew toward me, slapping my face. "Don't bully my mom," the child yelled. I looked up, my tear-filled eyes meeting the sight of Claire's son standing defiantly, hands on his hips, his small face full of anger, furious to the point of trembling. I gritted my teeth and said, "Do you even know what manners are?" The child, startled by my outburst, burst into tears. Ethan's mother quickly scooped him up and comforted him while chiding me. "You should speak calmly. How can you scare a child like that? He's just a kid and doesn't know better. You're only making things worse." Claire also stood up, reprimanding me. "Emily, no matter what, you shouldn't take it out on a child." Ethan quickly calmed Claire down, guiding her back to her seat before turning to me. "Apologize to the kid right now. You're an adult. How can you stoop to arguing with a child?" Unable to hold back the overwhelming resentment, I slammed my chopsticks down, stood up, and walked out the door. As I passed the cabinet, my eyes were drawn to a toy car prominently displayed on top. It was the very toy that Claire's son had said he loved the most. And it was also the toy Ethan said he had bought for his nephew before we came over. Ethan had mentioned to me earlier that a young child was staying at his house. I hadn't thought much of it and assumed it was his sister's child. Little did I know it was Claire's son. Thinking about this, I grabbed the toy car, opened the door, and threw it straight outside. The sound of Claire's son crying and Ethan's furious roar immediately erupted behind me. "Emily, are you out of your mind?" Ignoring the commotion inside, I walked out the door and waited for the elevator. Ethan came storming out, grabbed my arm forcefully, and tried to drag me back into the house. "Go back and apologize now. How can you?" as an adult, hold a grudge against a child? I struggled to pull my arm free, my eyes red with anger as I shouted at him, "Ethan, don't you think the one who should apologize is that rude child?" Smack. A sudden slap landed on my face, leaving me stunned. Tyler doesn't have a father. Isn't that pitiful enough? Can't you be more understanding? Scolding a child. Don't you feel cruel? Ethan's blatant favoritism made me laugh bitterly. If that makes me cruel, then fine. Call me cruel. But if you think I'm going to apologize, dream on. Just then, the elevator doors opened. I quickly stepped inside, leaving Ethan standing outside, fuming with rage. When I returned to the apartment Ethan and I shared, I began packing all my belongings. Once everything was ready, I had it sent back to my parents' home. Then, I booked a flight for the same day. I had lived in this city for 7 years because of Ethan, but this time, I would never return. Ethan called me repeatedly, but I didn't answer. For the first time, I didn't give in. I had been so foolish before. He had secretly flown abroad just because Claire said, "I miss you." He had even sold the small company he had spent years building just to pay off Claire's debts, leaving himself with nothing. There were countless incidents like these. Yet I had always forgiven him and felt sorry for him. I even hid it from him when I begged my family to use their connections to help his career. But no matter how much I did, I could never compare to Claire, his childhood sweetheart. To him, Claire was more important than his own life. And yet, despite how much he valued her, she had chosen another man all those years ago. When I returned home with my luggage, my mom glanced at me and scoffed. "Finally found your way back? Tasted enough bitterness, haven't you?" Though her words were sharp, she still helped me carry my bags inside. I forced a weak smile and didn't dare talk back because I knew I had been wrong. Very wrong. Neither of my parents had ever liked Ethan. They had opposed our relationship from the start. I had begged and cried for an entire month before they reluctantly agreed. But even their agreement came with conditions. They had wanted Ethan to marry into our family. But I knew how proud Ethan was. He would never agree to that. So, I had kept it a secret and quietly moved to his city. But reality had given me a harsh slap in the face. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, my dad returned home from work. He glanced at me coldly, snorted, and headed straight for his study. My mom nudged me with her eyes, signaling me to follow him. After 10 minutes of coaxing, I finally managed to calm him down. The house returned to its usual warmth and laughter. At dinner, my dad mentioned that he had found a potential match for me. He was a young man who had built his career from the ground up, ambitious and quite capable. After my dad finished speaking, both of my parents looked at me with eager anticipation. My mom pursed her lips slightly, as if ready to persuade me, worried I might refuse. After all, I had always opposed blind dates before. My dad, however, wore a dark expression, silently warning me that if I dared to say no, he wouldn't hold back. I couldn't help but laugh and quickly agreed. "Dad, send me his contact information. I'll meet him tomorrow." Hearing this, my parents' faces immediately lit up with joy, and the tension in the room melted into laughter. After dinner, I sat down to delete the few photos Ethan and I had taken together over the past few years. Just as I finished, a video call from Ethan popped up on my phone. I thought this might be my chance to end things clearly with him. But as soon as I answered, Ethan launched into a barrage of scolding. "I'm not coming home tonight. Stay at home and reflect on yourself. You've ruined my entire visit home. I was planning to let Tyler warm up to you, which is why I told you to buy that toy. But look at how you treated a child. You acted like a shrew. Now, not only does Tyler dislike you, but even my mom doesn't like you. Tell me, what should we do now?" He rambled on, glaring at me as if expecting an answer, completely unaware that the background behind me was no longer the apartment we had once shared. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at his words. I was dating him. Why did I need the approval of a child? I was about to reply when a woman's voice interrupted from his side. "Ethan, do you think I look good in this outfit?" A moment later, Claire appeared on the screen, dressed in a revealing silk nightgown, sitting closely beside Ethan. Seeing me on the call, Claire smiled and said sweetly, "Oh, Emily, don't be mad at Ethan anymore. Tyler isn't mad at you either. so don't make things harder for Ethan. Her attempt to mediate seemed fake. It was clearly a provocation. Her suggestive outfit and the way she leaned into Ethan said it all. Ethan's face turned red. But he didn't move away, letting Claire stay close to him. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened between them. Their intimate actions resembled those of a real couple. But outwardly, they maintained the pretense of being just friends. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. Unbeknownst to me, my mom had walked in. She grabbed the phone from my hands and said sternly, "Don't contact my daughter again. From now on, it's over between you two." With that, she ended the call. Her anger palpable. Ethan must have panicked because he immediately tried calling back. But I didn't answer and had no intention of doing so. My mom, worried I might waver, reminded me firmly, but I reassured her by gently patting her hand and promising not to relent. The next morning, I went out to meet the man my parents had arranged for me to see. He had a polite and humorous way of speaking, and his family background matched ours well. During our conversation, both sides felt satisfied. His name was Nathan Taylor, a prominent figure in the business world. By the age of 30, he had taken over his family's company and elevated it to new heights. My parents had already looked into him thoroughly. He had no messy romantic history, was wholly dedicated to his career, and his reputation in the industry was stellar. He was undoubtedly someone worth entrusting one's future to. After our meeting, since both families were acquainted, the marriage was quickly arranged. Our wedding date was set for the end of the month, just a few weeks away. That evening, after finishing a phone call with Nathan, feeling bored, I scrolled through my social media feed and came across something laughable. Ethan had taken Claire and her son on a vacation. They even stayed in the same hotel. Claire had posted a caption along with some photos. "Somewhere between friendship and love. Maybe soon we'll be a real family of 3. The photos included a shot of a double bed in the hotel room, and another of Ethan bathing with her son in the hotel bathroom. Below the posts were comments from Ethan's friends and Claire's close circle, people I was familiar with and even connected with on social media. One comment read, "Now you see how good Ethan is, don't you, Claire?" Claire replied with a shy emoji. Someone else chimed in, "Good thing you turned back in time. Imagine if Ethan had ended up with someone else." Then, one of Claire's friends, acting as if they'd had an epiphany, commented, "Oh my gosh, so Ethan hasn't married his girlfriend all these years because he was waiting for you? And now you're so happy together." The comment section continued with a flood of congratulations, wishing you both a lifetime of happiness, and hope you two have a baby girl soon to complete the family. I smirked and intentionally copied one of those comments, pasting it back as a reply under Claire's post. Unexpectedly, as soon as my comment went up, a friend messaged me privately, "Did you and Ethan break up?" I paused for a moment. Although I hadn't explicitly said it to him, it was clear enough that we were done. So, I replied, "Yes, we broke up." After getting my confirmation, she immediately wrote back, "Ethan is such a scumbag. Breaking up is the right choice. I hope he and Claire stick together forever and stop hurting other people." I laughed and replied, "It's fine. I'm getting married soon anyway. I'll send you an invite." After chatting for a few minutes, I ended the conversation. Then I went through my photo albums and found a wedding dress I had saved for 7 years. I used to adore that dress and thought it was perfect. But now, looking at it again, I realized it wasn't that beautiful. The dress wasn't expensive or particularly unique. I couldn't understand why I had liked it so much back then, enough to save it for so many years. Reflecting on it now, I could only think my taste at the time was truly terrible. While lost in thought, my phone suddenly rang. It was Ethan, curious about what he had to say. I answered, "Emily, don't misunderstand. The reason we're sharing a room is for convenience so I can take care of Tyler. Plus, it's a double room. You've seen that, right? Don't overthink things. About the other day, if you're no longer upset, just stay home and wait for me. I'll take Claire and her son on this trip to help them relax, and then I'll come back to pick you up." Okay. When I stayed silent, Ethan must have thought I was still angry. He quickly switched to a coaxing tone, almost as if talking to a child. "Emily, don't be mad anymore. Tyler is just a kid. If he's not upset, why should you, as an adult, hold a grudge?" I admit, I was a bit impatient when I asked you to apologize that day. Can you forgive me? Honey. Ethan only ever called me honey when he realized he had done something to upset me. In the past, I might have forgiven him, but now, I wanted to let go, to take control of my life and free myself from the murky entanglement between him and Claire. I no longer wanted to be part of their game. Thinking of this, I smiled and said, "Well, I hope you two have fun together." My smile carried no trace of jealousy, only pure sincerity. For a moment, Ethan seemed taken aback. "Tyler's calling me to bed," he said hurriedly. "He wants me to hold him while he sleeps. I'll call you later." "Okay." Without waiting for my response, he hung up. I took a deep breath and immediately called Nathan. "Let's move up the wedding date. Let's plan for that day." On the other end, Nathan didn't seem surprised. Instead, he asked with concern, "Are you sure about this? Is something wrong? You don't seem to be in a good mood." Nathan asked gently. I hadn't expected someone nearly 30 years old, with no prior relationships, to be so perceptive. The night before the wedding, I sent out my invitations to my old classmates group chat. The chat immediately exploded with messages. "Emily, why isn't Ethan the groom? You're joking, right? You two were together for almost 7 years. I never even heard about a breakup. How did you marry someone else so quickly? Wait, is the stuff on Claire's social media true? Did you two actually break up?" Faced with a flood of questions, I replied with just one message. "Ethan and I are in the past. I hope you'll come to my wedding." As soon as I sent it, the replies shifted to congratulations. Ironically, they were almost identical to the comments on Claire's post. I scrolled through my feed again, and Claire's updates dominated the screen. Ethan had taken her to so many places I had never been. Traveling with Ethan was something I had longed for, but he always said he was too busy with work. Yet for Claire, he seemed to find all the time in the world. Ethan gave Claire the kind of indulgence I had only dreamed of. Thankfully, I no longer wanted it. Suddenly, I saw a comment under one of Claire's posts. "Emily is getting married soon. Are you two planning to attend?" The comment was quickly deleted. I chuckled. Was Claire afraid I might take Ethan back? So, she was worrying over nothing. If I measured it, Claire owned 3/4 of Ethan's heart. My share might not even reach 1/4. With odds like that, how could I ever be a rival to her? On my wedding day, the venue was packed with guests. Many influential figures in the business world attended, some to celebrate Nathan, one of the rising stars in the industry, and others to show their respect. That night, after an exhausting day of celebrations, Nathan and I finally went to bed close to midnight. Initially, he suggested we take it slow and give ourselves more time to get closer, but I didn't give him that chance. The next morning, the alarm clock rang, waking me up. I was still groggy and unwilling to open my eyes, so I asked Nathan to answer the phone for me. In my half-asleep state, I thought I heard Ethan's furious voice on the other end. "Who are you calling her husband? What's wrong with Emily's husband? Are you with her right now? Tell her to pick up the phone." "Sorry, my wife is still sleeping," Nathan replied calmly before hanging up. By then, I was more awake, but I said nothing and went back to sleep. Nathan must have put my phone on silent because I knew Ethan would keep calling non-stop. Before leaving for work, Nathan hugged me, kissed my forehead, and went to the bathroom. When I finally got up, he had already been gone for over an hour. He had left me a message reminding me to eat breakfast. On my phone screen, a long list of missed calls glared in red, more than 20 from Ethan. I opened the call log and decided to call him back. I had completely let go, so I was calm when facing him. "Emily, what are you trying to do?" Ethan shouted the moment he picked up. "Are you putting a green hat on me? Who is that man? Did you hire someone to pretend to be your husband just to provoke me?" Before I could answer, he continued ranting. "Tell me, did you do this on purpose to make me angry? Let me tell you, you won't succeed. If you want to play, I'll play with you. But don't blame me if you get yourself into trouble. You know my rules. Once something's broken, it can't be fixed." All I could hear after that was his angry, labored breathing. Calmly, I replied, "Yes, I understand. I'm hanging up now. I need to get up and have breakfast," I said. cutting the conversation short. From the other end of the line, Ethan's disbelieving voice called out, "What did you just say? Are you saying that everything I've been telling you doesn't matter to you?" "Yes," I replied flatly. "I don't care about anything you're saying. I don't want to hear another word of your whining." And with that, I hung up without hesitation. Was he stranded on a deserted island? My wedding had been an extravagant affair, trending on social media for 3 days. If he had checked the internet, he would have known everything. After finishing breakfast, I unexpectedly received a call from Claire. "Congratulations, Emily. You finally decided to get married. If you'd waited any longer, you'd have turned into an old maid," she sneered. Hearing the mockery in her tone, I couldn't help but retort, "Are you feeling insecure about yourself? Is that why you went to such lengths to keep Ethan from finding out that I'm married?" Claire let out a cold laugh. I've known Ethan's feelings for me since we were kids. The bond between us is something you could never compare to. For example, this time, I came back to the country and easily took him back from you. What do you have to compete with me?" Her smugness didn't faze me. I simply laughed and replied, "Well, congratulations. Ethan is yours now, free of charge." Claire seemed slightly taken aback but quickly recovered with another haughty tone. "Since you're married, don't bother us anymore. My son loves having Ethan as his father, and I've decided to accept him as well. From now on, just stay out of our lives." With that, she hung up. I glanced at my phone and saw that I had recorded the entire conversation. Suddenly, I remembered something Ethan had once said to me. "Claire and I grew up together. I know her better than anyone. She's not manipulative like you." He had said that during a conflict between Claire and me early in our relationship. Back then, Claire must have felt I had stolen Ethan from her. On Ethan's birthday, she lied to me, saying he'd been in a car accident. Panicked, I rushed to the hospital, only to find out it was a prank. She had shrugged and said nonchalantly, "I was just joking." Claire had played many such jokes on me, yet I had always trusted Ethan unconditionally. After that incident, I couldn't take it anymore and told Ethan what had happened, but he chose to side with Claire and accused me of being manipulative. Looking back, I didn't blame him for thinking that. After all, I had poured all my energy into pursuing him. I woke up early on freezing winter mornings to buy him breakfast. I pretended to accidentally bump into him with my poor acting skills. I tried to win over his cat, enduring scratches multiple times in the process. Those were my attempts to show my dedication, but I never hurt anyone. Now, I understood. How could I ever compare to Claire? It was all in my head, my own delusion. I still remembered the day Ethan agreed to date me. I had been so happy that I told random strangers on the street like a fool. That day, Claire had announced her relationship with someone else, leaving Ethan heartbroken and utterly listless. He had looked like a man whose soul had been drained. I had told him, "Ethan, people say that the best way to forget someone is to start a new relationship. How about we try?" His vacant eyes stared at me, the silence so heavy that I could hear both of our heartbeats. After a long pause, he said, "Okay." Returning to the present, I sent the recording of Claire's call to Ethan, not out of spite, but to let him see Claire's true colors. I wanted him to know, no matter how calculated I may have been, I could never match Claire's level of cruelty. When she didn't need Ethan, she could happily move abroad. When she wanted him back, she could effortlessly return, as if nothing had ever happened. Half an hour later, Ethan called me again. "Are you jealous? Is that why you're pretending to be married to trick me?" He accused. When someone has nothing left to say, all they can do is laugh. I finally understood that deeply. Without a word, I hung up and blocked his number without hesitation. Reflecting on the years I spent liking Ethan, I seriously questioned whether I had been under some kind of spell, blinded or completely out of my mind. After getting married, Nathan and I got along surprisingly well. I wasn't sure if he loved me, but I noticed the small details. He put me at the top of his priority contacts, changed his social media profile picture to one of me, and posted several photos of me in my wedding dress, even though he had never shared anything personal online before. Looking at the pictures, I noticed the way his eyes seemed full of affection when he looked at me. I didn't know if it was real or just my imagination. Regardless, His actions made me feel truly happy. A week later, news about Ethan reached me. He had called my mother, saying he was back from his trip and wanted to visit our home to discuss marriage. My mom, unable to hold back, called him crazy and hung up on him. Ethan then used another number to call me. As soon as I answered, he launched into his speech. Emily, stop playing games. I know you've waited 7 years to marry me. I've made up my mind. Let's get married now that I'm back. But I need to remind you of one thing. After we're married, I'll treat Tyler as my own son. And if Claire, as a single mother, needs help, I'll continue to support her. I hope you won't mind this. I couldn't help but laugh. Handing the phone to Nathan, I said, "Darling, please handle this for me." Nathan frowned as he took the phone, his tone firm and serious. "I hope you'll stop bothering my wife. If you don't, I won't hesitate to make sure you're dealt with legally." For once, Ethan didn't react with his usual anger. Instead, he calmly replied, "How much is Emily paying you to play along with this charade?" Hearing that, I couldn't hold back my laughter. Snatching the phone from Nathan, I shouted, "I've bought him for life. If you don't believe me, I'd be happy to send you a private video of us to prove it." You shameless woman," Ethan stammered, his voice trembling with anger. Smiling triumphantly, I hung up. When I turned back to Nathan, I noticed his face was as red as a tomato. Did you record something? When did you do that?" he stuttered, avoiding eye contact. I burst out laughing and teased him. "Take a guess." Unexpectedly, Nathan turned even redder, mumbling, "Don't send anything. I don't want him seeing you like that." I cupped his face, laughing as I kissed his forehead. "Relax. I didn't record anything. I was just messing with him." In the end, Ethan couldn't reach me anymore. Through mutual friends, he eventually found out that I was married. I later heard from those same friends that when Ethan learned the news, he looked like he'd lost his soul, muttering to himself endlessly. One day, while walking near our home, I noticed Ethan trying to approach me. A couple of security guards immediately restrained him. "Emily, come back to me. Let's go home and have our wedding." "Okay," he pleaded desperately. I gently placed a hand on my belly and looked at him. "I'm pregnant. Do you really think that's possible? Don't you like Claire? Your mom adores her. Tyler wants you to be his dad. Isn't marrying Claire to officially become Tyler's father the best solution?" As I spoke, a woman appeared with a child in tow. It was Claire. Speak of the devil. And the devil appears. "Emily, why are you still tangled up with Ethan? He and I are about to get married. Can you just stay away from him?" Claire said angrily, then rushed over, trying to pull the security guards away from Ethan. "Let go of him. If my fiancé gets hurt, none of you will be able to bear the consequences," she shouted. Suddenly, Ethan turned toward Claire, his voice sharp. "Who's your fiancé?" "Claire. We haven't gotten married yet, have we?" Claire froze for a moment, then quickly regained her composure, shrugging as if it didn't matter. "We'll get married sooner or later. Your mom already agreed, didn't she?" "Then go marry my mom," Ethan snapped. "I hope you don't misunderstand, Claire. The only reason I've taken care of you and your son is because of our past. I haven't loved you for a long time. The only person I love is Emily." Hearing this, I wasn't surprised, nor did I feel any emotion stir within me. But standing nearby, Tyler's face turned red with anger. He began hitting Ethan repeatedly, yelling, "You're a bad man. I don't want you to be my dad anymore." Ethan, now completely out of patience, shouted back at Tyler, "Get out of my way." The absurdity of the scene made me laugh. I turned to Nathan and said, "Let's go, darling." Nathan smiled warmly. "Of course," he replied, wrapping his arm around me as we walked toward our car. Behind us, Ethan and Claire continued arguing, but when Ethan noticed we were leaving, he broke free from the guards and ran toward our car. He banged on the window, desperately trying to get me to come out, but before he could say another word, the car engine started, and we drove off, leaving him standing dazed in the middle of the street. In the days that followed, Nathan and I decided to take a vacation. The moment the plane took off, all the lingering discomfort I'd felt seemed to vanish into thin air. For the past week, Ethan had been harassing me nonstop. He camped outside my house every day, demanding to see me. Even after calling the police multiple times, the problem wasn't resolved. In the end, I had to call his mother to come and take him away. Unexpectedly, on the way to pick him up, the gas line in the apartment Ethan rented leaked. He was rushed to the emergency room and barely survived. Although he ultimately pulled through, he fell into a vegetative state. His mother begged me to visit him just once, but I refused. Ethan's condition was entirely the result of his own choices. During our trip, I overheard gossip from friends that Claire had married an older man with some money. Not long after, I heard that the man had gambled away all his assets. Claire often suffered domestic violence but didn't dare file for divorce. Her son, living under his stepfather's roof, wasn't treated well either, often going hungry and living a miserable life. As for me, by chance, I discovered a secret about Nathan. It turned out that my husband was the boy who had saved me when I was 15. Back then, my parents and I had gone to the beach for vacation. I had carelessly ventured too far into the water and was nearly swept away by the waves. A boy, slightly older than me, had courageously grabbed my hand and pulled me to safety. I was so terrified at the time that I forgot to thank him. By the time I realized it and wanted to express my gratitude, he was gone. Thankfully, fate brought him back into my life. Nathan is a good man, someone worthy of my love, and most importantly, he loves me too.
Understand.
As for Ethan, I lost her. Ethan lamented. I lost a girl who loved me so deeply, a girl who waited 7 years for me. I can't believe she actually got married. And to someone who wasn't me. He continued. I never imagined someone who loved me so much could end up with another man while still in love with me. She clung to me like some unshakable adhesive, impossible to peel off. But when she stopped loving me, I finally realized how deeply I loved her. In truth, I had loved her for a long time. I imagined what her reaction would have been if I had told her I wanted to marry her. How happy would she have been? Just like the day I agreed to date her. Her joy was so foolishly pure. She eagerly shared it with every passerby she met. That was the first time I felt how much someone could love me. In my relationship with Claire, I was always the one being controlled. But with Emily, the dynamic was entirely different. I became the one leading our relationship. And gradually, I began to enjoy the feeling of being loved so madly. As time passed, I realized that my heart was slowly but surely being filled by Emily. I came to understand that she had occupied so much of my heart that there was no longer room for Claire. But perhaps, deep down, I always believed that the things we can't have are the most desirable. That repressed longing finally exploded when Claire returned to the country. I yearned to win her heart, to prove that I was no less than anyone else, to ask why she hadn't chosen me back then. But when Claire cried and said she regretted her choices, I felt a sense of satisfaction. That moment, I suddenly no longer wanted her heart. Instead, the image of Emily flooded my mind. Only then did I truly believe that I loved her entirely. Perhaps it was due to my complicated psyche, but even though I knew I didn't love Claire, I couldn't stop myself from wanting to take care of her and her son. In the end, my foolishness drove Emily to marry someone else so quickly. I regretted it so much that I wanted to die, but I still tried one last time to win her back. After all, she had loved me for so many years. How could she stop loving me just like that? Reality, however, delivered a harsh slap to my face. Emily looked genuinely happy. Her gaze, once meant only for me, now belonged to someone else. My heart ached in waves, each one leaving me breathless. This pain was 10 times worse than what I felt when Claire chose someone else all those years ago. When I was unconscious from the gas poisoning, I dreamt that Emily and I were married. We had beautiful children and lived a happy life. I couldn't tell if it was a dream or reality. Even if it was a dream, I didn't want to wake up. Let me remain trapped in that dream forever. Was it punishment? Or was it a reward? I thought it was a reward. But Emily would surely see it as punishment. She likely wouldn't even want to appear in my dreams. The only strength keeping me alive is the thought of a world where Emily exists. If time could turn back, I would be the first to confess to her. On the day she confessed to me, I would respond to her fiery love with a love twice as intense. In a parallel universe, we would surely be happy together, wouldn't we? Emily, I love you. I've wanted to say this for so long. I also want to say, I'm sorry for letting down your passionate love. If there's a next life, please let me love you more deeply, okay?
The moment the news of Aaron's suicide from depression reached the country, my lover completely lost control. Like a madman, he drove straight into the river with me in the passenger seat. His mouth was filled with furious accusations. He said he and Aaron had been secretly in love with each other for 10 years. He said I had taken what didn't belong to me and ruined the beautiful future he and Aaron could have had together. He said I deserved to die. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Ethan silently walking away after his gambling-addicted father stole the tuition money. Later, he stood in the pouring rain, knocking on my car window, his voice trembling with sincerity. "Lola, it's me, Ethan, the one you love the most." Ethan, my lover, had just been named one of the top 10 young entrepreneurs of the year in Riverton. During a financial interview, it wasn't his success that trended online, but his cool, outstanding appearance. The host, clearly charmed, couldn't help asking, "Mr. Carter, you're young, successful, and accomplished. Who's the one person you'd most like to thank?" Ethan gazed deeply into the camera and said with emotion, "It's my beloved. Without her, I never would have had the strength to get where I am today." In front of the TV, I clutched the remote tightly. A smile tugged at the corners of my lips. The host looked at him with envy and asked, "And if your beloved suddenly disappeared, what would you do?" Despair flashed through Ethan's dark eyes, on the verge of breaking down. His voice trembled. "Then I'd disappear with her." I was stunned. Before I could react, my best friend immediately called. "Your cold CEO, who barely talks to anyone. Wow, who knew he loved you that deeply?" So, he loved me that much. As I watched the passion in Ethan's eyes through the screen, my heart burned like fire. I had stood by him for 10 years, through poverty, through hardship, until he finally became one of the city's most successful young entrepreneurs. I had helped him pick up scrap to make ends meet, lived with him in a damp, dark basement, and even drank over a pound of hard liquor just to win over a client, ending up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning that night. And yet, I had never seen that kind of gentleness in his eyes until now. In that moment, all the confusion, all the doubts I'd ever had disappeared into nothingness. Every bitter memory became aged wine, mellow and sweet. My heart felt warm. After the interview, Ethan called me himself. He asked me to come pick him up. He said he had a huge surprise for me. It was the first time he had ever taken the initiative to ask me out. I touched the small pendant around my neck and told him happily, "I've got a special gift for you too." But not even in my wildest dreams did I imagine. This wasn't the beginning of a deeper love. It was death's invitation. After I picked Ethan up, he drove me to a deserted riverside. The autumn wind was cold and harsh. I looked at the pitch-black river, just about to ask him why he brought me here, when he suddenly said, "Lola, do you know who I hate most in this life?" Of course I knew. It had to be Ethan's father, the gambler who beat him, stole his tuition, and sucked the life out of him. I remembered clearly, when his dad died, Ethan hadn't shed a single tear. He'd run into the rain laughing with relief, grabbed my shoulders and shouted, "I'm finally free." Since then, he had never brought up his father again. I had taken that as a sign. This was a wound we didn't touch. But now, hearing him ask so suddenly, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. I said, "It's your dad, right?" Ethan's gaze turned ice cold. His voice trembled with fury. I stared at him, stunned. His face was stone cold, without a trace of humor. Suddenly, he raised his clenched fist, and in his hand was a crumpled letter, so tightly gripped it was nearly torn to pieces. His expression twisted with rage. "Lola, it was you, wasn't it? You were the one who threw away the love letter Aaron wrote to me back then." I was completely baffled. It took a few seconds before I even remembered who Aaron was, just a classmate from high school. "Ethan, what are you talking about? What love letter?" I said, confused. "I don't even remember you and Aaron having any connection back then." But Ethan's anger only intensified. He shouted, "Stop pretending, Lola. Erin told me herself in her journal. She said she gave me a love letter back then. But I never even saw that letter. If it wasn't you who threw it away, then who else could it have been?" Lola, you're disgusting. Just because you had feelings for me and wanted to keep me for yourself, you went as far as to break me and Aaron apart. You made me think my love for her was one-sided all these years. You made us miss out on an entire decade. You kept us from becoming the couple we were meant to be. And now she's gone forever. You're the one who made that happen. You deserve to die. I had never seen Ethan so out of control. There was a kind of danger in the air that I had never felt from him before. My body instinctively leaned back, but there was nowhere to go. I was pinned against the car window. I tried to bring him back to his senses. Ethan, calm down. I don't even understand what you're talking about. But instead of listening, Ethan lunged forward and grabbed me by the throat. His bloodshot eyes locked onto mine with pure hatred. You're such a fraud, Lola. You always show up when I'm at my lowest, pretending to be my savior, acting all noble and selfless. Did you really think that would win my heart? That I'd fall for you because of your sacrifices? No. You only made me hate you more. You're disgusting. His grip tightened, choking the air out of me. I looked at him, stunned, barely able to breathe, not from the pressure on my neck, but from the pain of realizing this was how he truly saw me. So all those years I stood by his side through hardship and humiliation, all the pain we shared, he saw it as nothing more than self-serving manipulation. He thought I was fake. That I had always been fake. For 10 years, I loved a man who never understood gratitude, a man with a cold heart and an unfeeling soul. In that moment, I was completely and utterly disappointed in Ethan. You're nothing but a selfish coward, I whispered. If you loved her so much, why didn't you tell her back then? Why drag me through 10 years of hell with you? Ethan suddenly exploded. Shut up, Lola. If you hadn't stolen her place in my life, maybe Aaron and I would have been together long ago. Maybe she wouldn't have taken her own life over me. I wouldn't be stuck living like this. And you should pay for everything you've done. As soon as he said that, Ethan yanked his hand away from my neck, floored the gas, and in an instant, the car shot forward like a wild beast, plunging straight into the icy river. The water crashed in like a monster, flooding every inch of the car in seconds. The cold stabbed through my skin and down to my bones. I struggled to break free to survive, but it was useless. Panic turned to desperation. I turned to Ethan. He had closed his eyes, completely at peace, a faint smile on his lips. Aaron, I won't let you walk the path of rebirth alone, he whispered. No matter where in this vast universe you are, I'll find my way back to you. The water consumed the car completely. In the final moments of my life, my trembling hand rested gently on my belly. Tears streamed down my cheeks, silent, dissolving into the water, into the cold, into the sorrow. Ethan, you don't deserve to be a father. You don't even deserve to be human. But don't worry. Our child won't be alone. He still has me. Then I opened my eyes again. I was wearing a school uniform, a backpack slung over my shoulders, walking through a familiar alley on my way to school. From the alley entrance came a shout I remembered too well. You little brat! Where's the money you've been saving? Hand it over. Don't make me miss my chance to win it all back. A broomstick came crashing down on young Ethan's back. He didn't dodge. He didn't even flinch. He just stood there, dazed, staring at me as I walked past. His father caught sight of me, and a greedy look appeared on his face. I know you two go to school together. You've been helping him out, haven't you? If you've got a problem with how I treat him, and you want to keep interfering, fine. If he needs money, you can pay it for him. Seeing Ethan again, the hatred surged in my chest. My heart pounded so violently, it felt like it might break free. My nails dug deep into my palms, and I could feel the sting of torn flesh. I stared at Ethan coldly and said, "Spare the rod, spoil the child. If he's still disobedient, it just means you haven't hit him hard enough." Then I turned and walked away, without looking back. Behind me, I heard the sharp snap of the broomstick breaking, followed by Ethan's muffled grunt. But it seemed like that blow had finally jolted him awake. Like the wind, he suddenly dashed past me, leaving only a blur behind. His father roared after him. "You little bastard! Get back here. When you come home, I'm gonna break your legs." Suddenly, I realized something wasn't right and quickly followed after him. At the classroom door, Ethan came to a sudden stop. His eyes locked onto Erin, who was doing her cleaning duty. His expression shifted from disbelief to an intense infatuation, completely mesmerized. But the energy radiating from him no longer resembled the withdrawn, antisocial boy he once was. It was more like the aloof and refined entrepreneur he became 10 years later. Ethan walked over to Erin with calm, deliberate steps, took the chalk eraser from her hand, and said in a voice that was both gentle and commanding, "Chalk dust is bad for your health. You shouldn't be doing this kind of work anymore." Then, without warning, he turned to me. "Lola, you do the board for Erin from now on." He gave that order as if I were nothing more than his servant, like I was some accessory he could boss around as he pleased. I looked at the eraser in his hand with a cold, mocking gaze. "I know you're sick," I said flatly, "but you really don't need to make it this obvious. I'm not a veterinarian after all." Erin, standing behind him, finally reacted. She gave me a sly, amused look. "Class president," she said, feigning innocence. "How could you say that to Ethan? He only asked you to help me because I haven't been feeling well these past couple of days. He meant well." As she spoke, she deliberately struck a fragile, delicate pose, completely different from how lively she'd been just moments before. In my previous life, I had focused entirely on my studies and on Ethan. I'd never paid close attention to Erin, so I never realized just how good she was at playing the victim. I shot them both a look of disgust. "Wow, you two really know how to trap someone. If Ethan is so considerate, why doesn't he help you himself? Or does he not have hands?" Erin was stunned speechless by my retort. Ethan's face darkened immediately, and he glared at me with ice in his eyes. "Lola," he said coldly, "this is what you owe Erin. I'm giving you a chance to make up for it. Don't take it for granted." From the moment Ethan tried to kill me, the 10 years we had shared were completely erased. But hearing those words still sent a sharp pain through my chest. I never owed Erin anything. If anything, it was Ethan who owed me far more than he could ever repay. Ethan transferred to my class in senior year. I'd seen his father, that gambling addict, yelling at him on the street on the way to school. I felt sorry for him. I knew he didn't have money to eat, so I stopped buying snacks so he could afford meals. I knew he didn't have the money for tuition, but cared about his pride, so I helped him secretly collect empty bottles at night to save up. In college, I worked part-time jobs alongside him. I even used my scholarship money to cover his living expenses year after year. After we graduated, Ethan refused to depend on anyone and didn't want to live off others. So I gave him all my savings and even borrowed money from my friend Clara to help him start his business. I always believed he saw my sacrifices. I thought everything I endured would eventually become the vintage wine we would savor together as we walk through life hand in hand. But I was wrong. Not only did Ethan lack a heart, he was a cold-blooded predator. I had given 10 years of my life to the wrong man. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar Ethan standing in front of me, I let out a cold laugh. "Ethan, that's a strange thing to say. What exactly do I owe Erin that I need to repay her?" Ethan's eyes burned with intensity, the same look he had the night he tried to kill me. But in the end, his lips moved slightly, and he said nothing. Of course he couldn't say it, because in this life, none of it had happened yet. I sneered. "Speaking of debts, just a few days ago I covered your class material and activity fees, remember? Plus the times you used my meal card. That's a total of $300. Pay me back." I remembered it so clearly because, in our past life, Ethan insisted on writing an IOU just to prove he wasn't taking advantage of me. I let him, even admired him for it. I thought he was a struggling but ambitious young man, upright despite the hardships. But in the end, not only did he never pay me back, he took my life. How laughable. That so-called upright man? Just a scumbag who lived off women. Ethan suddenly let out a cold laugh. "So you've finally shown your true colors, Lola. Pretending to be generous, but in reality, you're petty and calculating. $300? Fine. As long as you apologize to Erin and agree to do whatever she asks from now on, I'll give you not just 300, but 3 million. Ethan's voice rang through the classroom, loud and forceful. For a moment, the entire room fell silent. Just then, Chris, who had just taken a sip of his energy drink, choked and sprayed it all over his desk. He wiped his mouth casually with the back of his hand, stood up, and walked a circle around Ethan before launching into his usual sarcasm. "Dude, are you out of your mind? With all those bruises, maybe someone knocked the sense out of you. 3 million? Seriously? My Lola is beautiful, kind, and not the least bit greedy. Why don't you pay back the $300 you owe before you go around pretending to be a billionaire? Ethan shot both of us a look full of contempt. Birds of a feather really do flock together, he scoffed, as if Chris and I were cut from the same worthless cloth. As he spoke, his hand instinctively reached toward the inside of his coat, like he still thought he was the sharp-suited CEO from 10 years in the future. But of course he wasn't. His brows suddenly furrowed, as if it had just dawned on him that, although he had returned to life, he had also gone back to being a penniless student. I couldn't hold back a cold sneer. What happened, Mr. Bigshot? You can give away 3 million but can't cough up 300? Did you forget your checkbook this morning? My jab drew a round of laughter from the class. Ethan clenched his fists and shot me a warning glare, clearly trying to tell me I'd better stop pushing my luck. But he thought too highly of himself and too little of the disgust I now felt toward him. I wasn't about to let up. If you don't have the money to pay someone to be your servant, I said coolly, then maybe do it yourself. Wipe the board, and don't hold up our morning lesson. Seeing Ethan embarrassed and unable to respond, Aaron gently tugged on his sleeve and said softly, "It's fine. Not everyone is as kind and helpful as you. Even if I'm sick, I can still handle it myself." Just then the bell rang. Ethan gave me one last cold glare. "It's just $300. I'll give it back to you tomorrow," he muttered before dropping back into his seat. His eyes were full of sympathy as he watched Aaron clean the board. Then he shot me one last vicious glare. Chris nudged me with his elbow and whispered, "Lola, are you and Ethan fighting?" Chris and I had been classmates since first grade and best friends all the way through senior year. In my previous life, we shared everything. When I first started helping Ethan out of pity, Chris didn't understand. He even tried to talk me out of it, saying I shouldn't sacrifice so much for someone like him. But he still told me that if I was truly happy, he'd respect my choice. Every time I was in trouble, he was always there, my unwavering support. I looked at him and said, "Even Buddha can only save those who are destined to be saved. And I'm not Buddha. We're not fighting. He just doesn't deserve my kindness." Chris gave me a thoughtful look, then suddenly grinned and smacked my shoulder. "Good. Honestly, I never liked Ethan anyway. That guy walks around with a permanent scowl, like the whole world owes him something. Just looking at him pisses me off." I nodded in agreement. "From now on, let's stay away from that walking black cloud. I don't need that kind of bad energy rubbing off on me." That whole day, Ethan focused all his attention on Aaron. The once brooding boy had become strangely eager and proactive. But I, armed with the painful lessons of my previous life, had already started planning a new future. I wasn't going to waste the second chance fate had given me. After school, I didn't go home right away. I stayed behind to review and redo a few practice tests. After all these years, much of the knowledge I once had was rusty. I needed to get it back, fast. By the time I packed up and started heading home, the sky had already turned gray with evening haze. As I reached the entrance of the alley, I saw a police car parked up ahead, surrounded by a small crowd of onlookers. "What a pity," one woman was saying. "That boy's got such a bright future, but what kind of father did he end up with? A damn gambler." "Thank God the police stepped in," another muttered. "Maybe things will finally turn around for him." Turn around? I heard the debt collectors showed up and cleared out the house, took everything that could be sold, including the kids' tuition money. "Look, that's him right over there. Poor thing." I followed their gaze and saw Ethan sitting alone on the curb, not far away. His face was pale, his clothes dirty and disheveled. The wounds on his body were still fresh, but the pain in his eyes ran even deeper. He looked utterly defeated, but in his eyes, there wasn't the slightest trace of fear or helplessness, only hatred and cold resolve burning like wildfire. In my previous life, it was also on this exact day that Ethan not only had all his hard-earned tuition stolen, but he also got beaten to a pulp by his father. But I distinctly remembered that back then, no police had ever shown up. I had even suggested he call the police, thinking they might help. He had stared at me in shock, appalled that I could even think of something so cold-blooded. He said, "That's my father after all." At the time, I thought Ethan was simply too devoted to family, willing to suffer humiliation just to preserve the bond of father and son. But looking back now, I realize I had naively lumped him into the category of good people and tried to explain his every action through the lens of kindness. Just then, Ethan looked up, and even in his disheveled, beaten-down state, he spotted me in the crowd. I immediately averted my gaze and turned to leave, expressionless. But his cold voice rang out. "Lola, don't look at me with those pitying eyes. In this life, I won't give you another chance to play the savior. And I'm not letting you get close to me ever again. Stop dreaming." I rolled up my sleeves and strode toward him, then raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. "Do us all a favor and get over yourself," I said sharply. "Use your damn eyes and look around. You go around school bragging about being able to fork out $3 million, yet you couldn't even help your dad pay off his debts, and worse, you called the cops on him. You think I'd pity someone like you? Please, you cold-blooded freak." The crowd around us fell into stunned silence. All eyes were on us. Ethan, who had always cared about what others thought, suddenly looked like he didn't know where to put himself. Public humiliation was the one thing he couldn't stand. But as for me, I'd never felt more satisfied. I cast him one last cold glance and said mockingly, "You still haven't paid back the $300 you owe me. You're not going to turn into another deadbeat like your dad, are you? I'm just a regular student. Don't you dare try to dodge this debt." Without giving him a chance to respond, I turned and walked away. Ethan didn't show up for class for the next 2 days. When he finally returned, the swelling on his face was gone and the blood-stained uniform had been washed spotless. He looked as if nothing had happened at all. I knew he was putting on a front for Aaron's sake, hoping not to leave a bad impression. But I had seen him at his worst, and that image was burned into my memory. I thought that after that slap we would become strangers with no more ties between us. But when the lunch bell rang and I was about to head to the cafeteria, Ethan suddenly appeared in front of my desk. Standing tall and looming over me, he looked down with undisguised disdain. I glanced up at him with a smirk. "What, did you finally remember to pay me back?" He scoffed. "Lola, your vision is so narrow. All you ever think about is money." He gave a dry laugh, then added bitterly, "If it hadn't been for him, do you think I'd be in a position where I had to pinch every penny? And now you say I'm the one who only sees money." I clenched my fists under the desk, glaring back at him, ready to punch him again if I had to. "So?" Ethan sneered. "It's just $300, right? Lend me another 200, and tomorrow I'll pay you back with interest." Just then, a loud laugh came from the doorway. It was Alex, the class clown. "Seriously? You can't even pay back 300, and now you want to borrow 200 more? Are you trying to scam someone with a mental disability or what?" Then he raised his eyebrows at me and grinned. "We didn't vote for a class president with that kind of brain damage, did we?" I rolled my eyes and shot back. "He may be the one with problems, but I'm definitely not. My money doesn't fall from the sky, and I am that narrow-minded, money-obsessed, stingy person you say I am. If you want to borrow money from me, keep dreaming." With that, I grabbed my lunch card and started heading toward the cafeteria. Ethan's eyes locked onto my card, and something in them suddenly clicked. "Lola," he said with a mocking smile, "if you wanted me to eat lunch with you, you could have just asked. No need to put on such a show. If you lend me the money, I'll graciously agree to accompany you. But just this once." The tone in his voice was condescending, like he was bestowing a gift upon me. I finally snapped and lifted my gaze to meet his eyes. Back in the day, I'd seen him starve himself just to save up for tuition. I used to think he was pitiful, that he was noble. Back then, I had always tried to protect Ethan's pride. I would come up with all kinds of excuses just so he could eat lunch with me without feeling embarrassed. But now, it was laughable to think those meals had turned into his version of charity toward me. I silently cursed myself for ever falling for someone this delusional. "I just realized," I muttered, "you've got something in common with Shakespeare." Ethan tilted his chin arrogantly. "What do I have in common with Shakespeare?" His expression froze for a second, clearly intrigued and ready to hear some grand compliment. But I turned to Alex, held up my lunch card, and said, "Lunch is on me today." We hadn't taken more than a few steps when Ethan suddenly blocked our path. "Lola," he snapped, "what's with this whole push-pull act? You think it's cute? I don't have time to play your little games. That $200 is really important to me. Don't get in the way of serious business." I scoffed. "And what does your business have to do with me?" But Ethan just looked at me like he had me all figured out. "If you don't want to call it a loan, I'll graciously accept it as a gift. That's acceptable, right?" Alex burst out laughing. "Man, Ethan, I'm genuinely jealous of how thick your skin is. You really take care of it." Ethan glared at him with visible irritation. "This is between me and her. It's none of your business." Alex gave me a look full of mischief. "Wait, I'm the outsider? Does that mean he's the insider?" I shot him a glare. "Are you insane? Or am I? What makes you think I'd ever fall for a narcissistic lunatic like him?" Alex grinned, flashing his perfect teeth. "Good point. But for someone like me, a real man, borrowing money from a girl, hell, even letting a girl pay for lunch, is out of the question. Come on, you're treating, I'm paying. Order whatever you want." He raised his brows at Ethan, a subtle but unmistakable challenge. Ethan's face turned stormy. "Lola, if you walk away now, don't expect me to speak to you again." I met his gaze coldly and said, "One word at a time? That's exactly what I want." Alex and I walked away without looking back. Behind us, Ethan shouted, "Lola, don't say I didn't give you a chance. You're going to regret this." Regret? What a joke. Getting involved with Ethan was the single biggest regret of 2 lifetimes. I thought that would be the end of it, that Ethan would finally fade out of my life. Even if we crossed paths, I assumed we'd just pretend the other didn't exist. But I had underestimated his shamelessness. One day, he marched up to me with a smug grin and declared, "Lola, from now on, I'll be tutoring Aaron after school. We're going to get into Tsinghua or Peking University together. You, no matter how hard you work, will never catch up. Even without you, Aaron would still help me, because unlike you, she's not fake." I looked him dead in the eyes and said coldly, "So you have no hands or feet? You can't do anything without relying on a woman?" His lips twitched. "Lola, soon you'll understand just how ridiculous it is to talk that way to a future billionaire. But too bad. You'll never get another chance to marry into wealth. You'll always be stuck at the bottom of society." I stared at Ethan, who looked so pleased with himself and couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. The thrill of success really did make people forget where they came from. He had forgotten where his startup money came from, forgotten who negotiated those impossible deals. He would never admit that it wasn't he who made me wealthy, but I who turned him into someone powerful. I said flatly, "What makes you think I need to marry someone rich to become wealthy?" He looked at me with manic conviction. "Because I'm the chosen one. Even if I died, I'd come back and start all over again." And that was the moment I knew for sure, despite how obvious I'd been, he still hadn't realized that I had been reborn too. Or rather, deep down, he never believed I could be favored by fate the same way he had. He was arrogant and delusional to the core. 2 days later, Ethan appeared in front of me again, this time holding a fancy jewelry box like it was a treasure. "This," he said proudly, "is Aaron's birthday gift. It's worth $5 million. I glanced at the box in his hand, utterly unfazed. "So, future billionaire, when exactly are you going to pay me back that $300? His smugness faltered, a flash of irritation crossing his face. "Money, money, money, Lola, that's all you ever care about," Ethan snapped, clearly annoyed by my reaction. "You're always so boring." He couldn't hide his dissatisfaction, but I had long stopped caring to respond kindly. "If you hate me so much," I said coldly, "why don't you just pay me back and get lost? Stop hanging around trying to feel important." Ethan glared at me with gritted teeth. "I want you to understand that you will never measure up to even Aaron's pinky toe. The gap between you and her will only get wider. You'll never know if the person you fell in love with was an angel or a demon." The man I had once given my whole heart to couldn't even offer a single empty, polite blessing for a peaceful goodbye. I looked at him with icy indifference. "I don't care how powerful you become in the future, you'll always be trash in my eyes." After that, every time Ethan looked at me, there was a smug gleam in his eyes, like he couldn't wait to watch me fall. But honestly, Why would I waste time trying to guess what was going on in the mind of a dog? It didn't even take 2 days before the most delicious drama unfolded. That evening, I was still at school grinding through practice tests. On my way home, just as I passed the entrance to the alley, I heard angry shouting coming from the shadows. "Damn it, you think you can cheat me? I'll beat your ass till you drop," a harsh voice barked. "I didn't cheat. That number is definitely going to win. Maybe I just got the draw date wrong. It might be the next one. Yeah, I'm sure it's the next one." Ethan's panicked voice trembled through the alley. I was curious, so I crept closer to see what was going on, and there they were, a group of punks with brightly dyed hair surrounding Ethan. But the most shocking part? Erin stood among them, looking down on Ethan with a cold sneer. "I've never met a more shameless loser than you," she spat. "Still trying to get me to feed and clothe you? Did a dung beetle lick your brain while you were sleeping?" Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "Erin, don't you love me? I told you, I'm gonna marry you. Why are you acting like we're strangers now?" Erin's face twisted in disgust, like she'd just swallowed a fly. "Me? Like you? Don't be ridiculous. Everyone knows your dad's a gambling addict with nothing but bad habits. What kind of decent man comes from a guy like that? You're garbage, pure trash." Ethan looked at her like his world was falling apart. "Erin, how can you say that to me? I'm your true love. You even said you'd die for me someday." Smack. One of the punks, a guy with yellow-dyed hair, slapped Ethan across the face and then wrapped his arm around Erin's waist. "Open your damn eyes," he growled. "I'm her man now. Who the hell are you, if you think you deserve her?" Ethan's lips trembled as he watched Erin snuggle into the other guy's chest. "Erin, how could you fall for a punk like him? You love me. I know you do. You were forced, right?" Erin responded with a vicious kick to Ethan's shoulder, then leaned up and kissed the dyed-hair thug right on the lips. "Look carefully," she said coldly. "This is my choice. I want to be with him." Ethan's eyes widened. He shook his head violently, as if trying to reject the reality unraveling before him. No, this isn't real. You love me. You've been spending time with me every day, haven't you?" Erin looked at him like he was an idiot. "The only reason I ever got close to you was to piss off Lola. You think I'd go near someone like you otherwise?" "Piss off Lola?" Ethan blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Erin crossed her arms. "Lola's perfect grades, popularity, and reputation always made me feel second best, so I decided to show her that whatever she works hard to get, I could take away with a snap of my fingers. I wanted to prove I'm more attractive than she is." Ethan's voice shook. "Then, why didn't you keep lying to me? Why tell me the truth now?" Erin rolled her eyes. "Because Lola doesn't care about you anymore. So why would I keep a delusional loser like you hanging around? You think you're going to become some billionaire? Get real. You're just an embarrassment now." Her words sliced through him like a knife. "Ethan, you're useless to me now." "No," Ethan muttered, completely broken. "Lola won't abandon me. She can't. There's no way she doesn't care." He sat in a dark corner, devastated, motionless, even as Erin and the punks walked away laughing. He couldn't pull himself back to reality. Watching him now, so utterly pathetic, I felt nothing but irony. Erin? Write him a love letter? What a joke. He actually killed me, our child, and himself, all for that kind of woman. He even destroyed what could have been a brilliant future with his own hands. Truly, evil meets its match. He deserved every bit of it. Just then, Ethan suddenly lifted his head and frantically looked around. "Lola? Lola!" he called out in a panic. I was about to leave, but it was too late. He spotted me hiding in the shadows. His eyes lit up with surprise, and he scrambled up from the ground, stumbling in my direction. I didn't want to have anything to do with him, so I immediately turned and walked away, but he grabbed my arm before I could get far. "I knew it," he said breathlessly. "I knew you'd show up when I was at my lowest. This time, your wish comes true. I'm finally allowing you to be my girlfriend." Disgusted, I yanked my arm out of his grip. Looking at the way he acted like he was doing me a favor made my skin crawl. "Even if I were picking trash off the street," I sneered, "I'd still check to see if it had any value. You're nothing but spoiled food waste, utterly repulsive." Ethan's brows furrowed. "Lola, even if you want to act reserved, you don't have to be this nasty. I'm telling you now, take the offer while I'm still in a good mood. Once I change my mind, it'll be too late for regrets." I laughed coldly. then by all means, change your mind. In fact, drop the idea forever. Just thinking about me that way is insulting. His eyes darkened with anger. Lola, you'd better watch yourself. Don't push your luck. My patience has limits. Trying to reason with a beast really was like playing the violin for a cow. I didn't waste another word. Instead, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. Does that make my feelings clear enough? Ethan stood there, stunned, holding his cheek. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, I slapped the other side just as hard. Was one not enough? How about now? You crazy Bick, he started, but before he could finish, I kicked him square between the legs. If I wasn't clear before, I said, how about now? Even if this kick makes you sterile, it'd be worth it. Ethan doubled over, clutching himself, sweat beading on his forehead as he looked up at me in pain. Lola, he gasped, one day you'll realize what you've missed out on. I stared at him coldly. I'll be looking forward to it. After that incident, Ethan stopped coming to school altogether. Meanwhile, I fully embraced my second shot at youth. Without distractions, my grades improved dramatically. Even Chris, influenced by my focus, started doing better than ever. We were both feeling confident about the upcoming college entrance exams. Just when I had nearly forgotten about Ethan, rumors about him started floating around again. Word was he'd been going around asking people for money, saying he needed investors. He promised he'd get his company listed in 3 years, and told anyone who refused to invest that once he won the lottery, they'd regret missing their chance. People who heard about it all agreed. Ethan must have lost his mind. Probably gone crazy from poverty. Even I, knowing the full truth, figured he must have swallowed too much river water when he died. With the way he was acting now, it wasn't just that he couldn't attract investors. He wouldn't even qualify to work in a scam call center. Hearing those things only made me look forward to his downfall even more. And that moment came sooner than expected. It was a gloomy, drizzling evening. I had just reached the bottom of my apartment building when I saw a drenched, miserable figure trembling in the rain. As soon as he spotted me, he lit up like a starving wolf and lunged in my direction. I stepped to the side and watched coldly as he fell face first into the muddy ground. Without even glancing at him again, I turned to leave. But Ethan grabbed my ankle, his teeth chattering. Lola, it's me, Ethan. The one you love the most. I'm freezing and starving. Take me to a hotel, okay? Get me something warm to eat, and we'll talk it all out, yeah? His eyes no longer held the pride they once did, only desperation. I squatted down slowly, my face curled in mockery. I pried Ethan's fingers off my ankle one by one, full of disgust. Back in your last life, at least you knew how to dig through trash for a couple steamed buns. But after pretending to be rich for just a few days, you've already forgotten your roots? Ethan jerked his head up, eyes wide with shock as he looked at me. His voice trembled. Lola? You? No? That's impossible. There's no way. He shook his head frantically, refusing to accept the truth. That I had been reborn too. I sneered. You think you came back because you're some chosen one? No. It's because even heaven wanted to give you what you truly deserve. Ethan's expression shifted from disbelief to growing fear. Lola, I was confused before, he stammered, but this time, I swear I'll treat you right. Let's get back together. We'll start a company together. This life will be even richer. I stood up and stared down at him with icy eyes. Richer? I scoffed. Ethan, the only thing I want in this life is to see you suffer. Almost without thinking, my hand touched my flat stomach. Last time, Ethan killed both me and our unborn child with his own hands. Now that I'd come back, how could I possibly let him live in peace? I wasn't some saint. Just because he dropped his knife didn't mean I'd help him become a better man. He must have sensed the murderous chill in my gaze because he scrambled to his feet and ran off in a panic. Watching him flee, I made myself a silent promise. Last time, I helped a rat like him dress up in human skin. This time, I'll make sure he stays in the sewer forever. I opened my palm and looked at the lottery number he had once given me, the one that had supposedly brought him glory. I smiled faintly. Ethan, on your path to crawl out of the gutter, you'll find a mountain too high to climb. That mountain is me. 2 months later, I got accepted into Tsinghua University with outstanding scores, something I hadn't even dared dream of in my past life. Even Chris got into his dream school, the top law and political university. We were both moving toward brighter futures. When Ethan heard the news, he lost it and came looking for me like a madman. Lola, how could you change fate? How could you just leave me and go to Tsinghua? You're supposed to suffer alongside me like before, helping me become a billionaire. If you leave, we're both doomed. I looked at him like he was nothing. The only one who's doomed is you. I'll never have to collect bottles or live in a basement again. From now on, I rise without baggage. Ethan shook his head desperately. No, you can't do this. I'm supposed to be one of Rongcheng's top 10 young entrepreneurs. You can't succeed without me. Smiling, I pulled out the business license I just registered. Don't worry, I'll do better than you ever could. His face twisted with rage. Lola, how could you do this to me? I stared coldly at him. Compared to murdering me, this is nothing, and it's only the beginning. Fear flickered in his eyes. What do you mean? I glanced behind him, right at the van that had just pulled up. His gambling addict father, David Lin, jumped out with a group of men in white coats. Smiling for the first time in front of Ethan, I said, "You'll find out soon enough." David pointed straight at Ethan. "Doctors, that's my son. He's gone insane. Everyone in the neighborhood can vouch for it. Lock him up now." Without hesitation, the burly medical staff moved in and restrained Ethan. "What are you doing?" "Let me go," he screamed. "I'm not crazy. I'm the future of Rongcheng. How can you believe a degenerate gambler over me?" The more he thrashed and shouted, the tighter they bound him. "Lola," he shrieked. "Help me. Say something. We were husband and wife. Doesn't that mean anything?" I put on my best frightened look and turned to the doctors. "We're just classmates. Look at him. He's completely gone. Please take care of him. His mind needs serious help." "Lola?" Ethan roared. "If I'd known you were this heartless, I would have strangled you the moment I came back." I walked up to him and leaned in close. "Don't worry, I'm not letting you die that easily. You're going to live, Ethan. You're going to live long enough to watch me succeed while you rot in the mud." Ethan's face turned pale. His entire body trembled, and then, all of a sudden, his knees buckled as he dropped in front of me. "Lola, please, please save me," he begged, his voice cracking. "I'm the one you love the most, remember?" Before he could go on pleading, the medical staff, unable to stomach the scene any longer, shoved him back into the van. Meanwhile, his father, David Lin, turned to me with a look full of flattery and gratitude. "Thank you," he said, practically bowing. "Thank you for paying my fine. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have gotten out so soon to finally teach that worthless brat a lesson." I gave him a polite reminder. "Uncle, I know he's your son, but please, don't go soft. A mentally unstable person is capable of anything." David nodded seriously, a rare expression of sincerity flickering across his rough face. "You've got a good heart. Don't worry, I know exactly what I need to do." 3 years later, even before graduating college, I had already used the knowledge from my previous life to build my company into a thriving success. People everywhere referred to me as that one perfect child everyone else's parents wished they had. To celebrate, I drove to the city center and parked, quietly enjoying the sight of a disheveled beggar, missing an arm and a leg, bowing repeatedly to passing pedestrians, begging for spare change with pitiful groans. Suddenly, a massive outdoor screen lit up with footage from a recent interview I had given. My face appeared, young, elegant, confident. The host had showered me with compliments: intelligent, beautiful, accomplished, wealthy. From a distance, the beggar looked up and stared at the screen. His eyes widened in shock as he recognized me. Guttural, broken sobs spilled from his mouth, but no clear words came out. His nose ran, and tears streamed uncontrollably down his face, but he couldn't utter a coherent sentence. Just then, not far from him, David Lin, now bearded and haggard, swung a stick and struck the beggar viciously. "You worthless piece of trash! What are you crying for? Get back to begging. Make yourself useful." Watching that scene unfold before me, a quiet smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "Ethan, this ending of yours, I'm very, very satisfied."